kind of going for that digital high intensity gradient. Oh man, look at that. Okay, I'm liking it so far. We have finished our 3 small gradients. I can barely hold them. Those were all 16 by 20 inches, pretty small, but now we're gonna do 3 large gradients. And today, I'm excited to share that we're doing a 30 by 40 on linen. This is not cotton. This is actually a lot more of a soft material. And the reason I'm doing that is something special. I am actually going to be doing a 2-layered gradient. The first layer today is going to be this giant rainbow because it's a collaboration with my friend Julia Wild. She wanted a rainbow horizontal landscape. And then the second step I'll talk about later is going to be kind of crazy. I've never tried it before, but I think it works best on this type of canvas. I don't have a reference image right now. All I have is off the top of my head. I'm going to just use these colors, try to make this beautiful, vibrant rainbow, have each side, I think, fade to black, and use this big brush. This is my 32-inch brush. 8 4-inch brushes, all side by side, bolted together. I've had this thing for about 3 years now, and it's done so good. I just cannot believe it hasn't fallen apart. So these brushes from the hardware store are surprisingly robust. Plan here is to do a gradient going this way. Now, of course, if you've listened to my other gradient series, you know if you don't have a brush that spans the entire width, you're at risk for causing a margin and not having a perfect seamless blend across the whole thing. And that's totally true. I just don't have a 40-inch wide brush. So I think what we're gonna have to do is do a manual brush on the side with a smaller wide brush to get everything looking coherent. So let's start out with the colors and do a little test sample to see what kind of rainbow we're working with before we commit to the big canvas. This is pretty much the entire color palette. You've got your quinacridone magenta, you've got your deep reds, oranges, yellows fading into that green, blue, purple. If you think back to your chemistry, physics days, if you remember the visible light spectrum, it's Roy G. Biv, R-O-Y-G-B-I-V. It's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And so I'm just gonna kind of wing that. But again, we're gonna do it on a practice canvas, see if the colors go down nicely and adjust accordingly. My hunch is that this pyrrole red's gonna be too strong because it's very, very opaque. My hunch is that this green could be too much because I usually find that the yellow and the blue automatically mix and having green is a little unnecessary. I'm hoping that this is enough blue to really solidify that rainbow. I feel like it's kind of lacking over here, but we don't know until we try. So let's get going. Okay, so for practice attempt number 1, I'm gonna use these cheap brushes. This is $7 from Amazon. Not the best bristles for blending, but it's gonna do the job, so I'm not wasting my good brushes. I'm gonna do 2 sides here. Remember, each rainbow side is gonna fade to black. So I've got carbon black here. Quinacridone magenta. Now I've got to make sure not to go too wide here. Quinacridone red. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I have a feeling this pyrrole red is going to be overpowering, so just do a little bit. Just do a little bit. And that's just from years of using pyrrole red. I find it to be really overpowering. Orange, beautiful orange right here. Big orange guy. We got some of this diarylide yellow. I actually don't know how to say it. Let me know in the comments if you do. Some of that. Some of this yellow here. Now, like I mentioned, I don't know how important this green will be. We'll see. Just use a little bit. Of course, we got our blue. Now, this blue is, okay, this is actually pretty opaque apparently. I think the cobalt is the one I was confusing it with. That one's usually very, very transparent. Ultramarine. Ultramarine violet. Really getting to the end of our brush width here. I actually might want to upscale. Purple. And then, of course, carbon black on the outside. So you've done a full rainbow. If you look at the brush, it pretty much almost gets it. I'm still going to use it, actually. I think it'll be okay. And then to kind of mimic what we will be doing, I am just going to wet it just a little bit. Just a little bit. And we're gonna go for it. It's gonna look awesome, I think. Look at that. Beautiful. That is a rainbow, let me tell you. Tiny bit of shifting left and right, just a little bit. Okay, that was a great first attempt just to kind of get the feel for it. Now I've got this beautiful gradient on this right here. I'm just going to put it on the table just as a little reminder. That color is everywhere out here. Beautiful. I'm going to preserve this in some water. So, observations. I think up close, I lost some of that magenta. You can see that the black really came in there and disguised that beautiful purpley magenta color. So I want to be more careful, either by adding more magenta, taking away black, or just making sure my brush doesn't go left and right as much on the next time. I'm also seeing how this orange is great. It's maybe a little dark, and I think the interior here is lacking some potency. It has kind of like the color of like a bird to me, like a macaw, like a parrot. Whereas I kind of want it to be a little bit more potent, especially because this will dry darker, just slightly. So I think I'm going to actually either remove the green entirely or just use so little amount of green that you'll barely notice, while at the same time increasing the amount of yellow. This blue here, I kind of wish it was a little bit more like this blue, kind of like this kind of light blue. And so I think that's another thing that was lacking in that attempt. So I'm going to bring some kind of light blue in there, probably by adding a little bit of white to this cerulean blue. Purple looks okay, nice and deep and rich and vibrant, but I think the whole thing could benefit from being just a little bit brighter to me. So in order to brighten it up, I will probably have to custom mix a few colors, which is no problem. As per usual, we're going to start out with this carbon black. Again, not too much. You went a little heavy last time. Let's try to keep that quinacridone magenta nice and present. Beautiful. Okay, quinacridone red next. And I'm actually going to get rid of this pyrrole red. I think it was a little redundant. You can see how much it's overpowering over on this side. So let's just do pyrrole orange. Beautiful. A little bit of this diarylide yellow. No clue how to say it. Primary yellow. So I think I want more primary yellow this time, because that'll help mix with that blue greenish effect while at the same time brightening up this side. Now here's where I think I want to add some more brightness to it all. Titanium white is going to slightly go in with phthalo green. Phthalo green with just a tiny amount of white. Oops. Yeah, brightens it up a little bit. Now again, you don't want to use too much green. You clearly had a lot there. So this is going to be risky, but I'm actually just going to add a little bit of white right here. Add just the smallest amount of green. Barely any. And then finally doing some blue. Now again, I think this blue did not come through as much as I would have hoped. I don't think it's the right kind of blue. I'm going to switch to cobalt. This cobalt blue has like more of like a rich color to me, where I feel like cerulean didn't. Cerulean might be more natural, but I'm kind of going for that digital high intensity gradient in my opinion. Let's add just a little bit of white to this cobalt blue. Just a tad. There's some water in there to get it mixed up. And I think this will have a little bit more potential now. Beautiful. Now I'm kind of hoping that that white pulls just slightly to the right in order to brighten up this ultramarine blue. Because if you ask me, this ultramarine blue is just a little heavy, just a little bit. So I'm actually just going to do that myself. I'm going to mix Tiny bit of white in with that existing cup. I'll just mix some more later. Just to kind of dull this color a little bit. I might have actually did too much there, so let's go back just a little bit. And come in with our new blue color. A little darker, you can see, without being overpowering. Now, of course, we ended off with that purple. I think this is so transparent that you don't even need to mix it with white. Nice and pigmented. Ended off with a little bit of diox. I actually did like how that diox mixed with the black on the outside. And then ended off with our carbon black. Big bad carbon black. Okay. Spray bottle again. Just moisten it just a tad. Luckily this brush, you can see, is the correct width of all these colors, so I'll have to do less shifting to make it look good. Ooh, yeah. Look at that. A lot brighter. You can tell that middle is just a lot more intriguing, I feel. That is a beautiful rainbow. Look at that. It makes the green less serious and foresty and a little more implied. It's not perfect yet, and I kind of still want more of that baby blue color. So I think on the real one, that's what I'm going to do, is just add a little bit of white in the blue-green section right there. But overall, I'm liking this side a lot more. You can see the magenta. It's still got covered with that cobalt black, with the black, so you got to be really careful because I really want that magenta to come through. Purple side looks nice. The orange fades nicely. I like the primary yellow addition. So yeah, this has more of like a chromatic effect. This is a little bit more dull of a rainbow, simply by just adding a little bit of more brightness in the middle. So here's that nice big 40-inch long canvas. Now I want you to notice something. Do you feel how loose that canvas is? You might already know this, but there's a little trick and a hack to that. Now, it's not the worst case in the world if it's loose, but there's an issue with the canvas structure here, where if you look at the back side, this canvas, the bar in the middle, comes very close to contacting the surface of the canvas right here. And so what that means is if it's sagging and touching, when you're doing these brush strokes, you risk having a line right there. So what you want to do is tighten up the canvas, make more of a distance between that canvas bar and the canvas itself. You guys might already know this. This is an old trick where if you pick up the canvas and spray it with water, it'll tighten it up. A light misting on the outside, and it'll tighten right up. Needs a few minutes. Okay, after about 90 seconds or so, you tap the back, listen. Sounds like a drum now. And that distance between the canvas and the bar is a solid ½ inch or more, which is perfect. So now that's gonna mitigate that line from showing up. Now that we have done 2 little samples, it is time to get going on the large canvas. Really excited to do this. It's gonna look awesome. It might not be perfect, and I want to do my best to limit the amount of strokes. There's like a sweet spot of like 30 to 50 strokes. Once you go too much, you really push it into the canvas and you risk it becoming muddy, you risk it damaging the paint, especially because this stuff dries really quickly unless you spray it with water. But the more you add water, the more you dilute it. So it's this constant trying to find harmony with color saturation as well as not allowing the paints to dry out. I also mentioned in the prior gradient video that my other brush has smaller bolts, but you can see here how much longer that these are. And sometimes it actually comes in contact with the canvas. So had I built this thing differently, I would have used more shallow bolt length so it wouldn't interfere, because this can really damage like a nice linen canvas especially. Before painting, I'm just gonna make sure all my colors are mixed, all my custom ones. I don't love this green. It was too watery. You can see how it looks a little blotchy. I'm loving this though. I think I can get away with more quinacridone magenta, making sure the black doesn't come in too hard. And I want to brighten up this blue, kind of have like a baby blue effect. So I'm debating mixing it actually with the green, adding some white, and allowing that rainbow to come through. So this is that green that we were using earlier. As I mentioned, I'm going to mix it just a little bit with this cobalt blue. I'm going to brighten it up just a little bit. Okay. Next we are going to make that blue just slightly brighter as we talked about. Actually, you know what? I'm kind of thinking instead of cobalt, I want to like a little bit more of a teal color. And I know to get that teal, you use a phthalo blue, which is a green shade. One right here. And I'm going to mix it with a little bit of white. I think that's actually going to give us that cyan color that we're after here. Start with white, a little bit of phthalo, and then just a small amount of water. Okay, yep, I like that color. And I think I want to make the ultramarine blue just slightly more white. Just a little bit more in there. Got a little bit of water in there. So we ended up mixing 3 custom colors here. It's a little bit of that greenish blue. We got a little bit light blue phthalo. And then this ultramarine blue has been lightened up just a tad. One final thing to potentially consider is finding a center point. You can see here that it is should be a 40-inch canvas. Yep, exactly 40. So the midpoint is basically where this blue dot is, a little to the right of this blue dot. One final thing to do, I'd say, is to just kind of brush off any kind of loose debris, as well as making sure I do have a scalpel blade to pull up any nasty hairs if they end up coming up. Do it off to the side, get any dust and debris outside of your brush before committing to this. Okay, let's make it happen. Just to the side of this. Try to be linear as possible. Lots of white, just keep it nice and bright in there. Primary yellow, as we talked about. I love this primary yellow color when it comes to rainbows. Now I'm kind of doing the opposite direction of how I put the color down. So just something to keep in mind. Plus, you might have noticed I skipped one color. I skipped my dial-a-ride orange here. It's that kind of middle color right there. Not too much. Should be good there. I actually did notice that there's a little bit of debris here coming from. So just being really tuned in to make sure you're noticing debris, because you do not want debris, obviously. Finally, we got some, I think it was quinacridone red. Beautiful quinacridone red. Getting up there. And then, of course, our magenta. Really want to make sure that magenta comes through. You can even pull it in a little bit. Yeah, it's really there. Okay, now, this is the more complicated side, in my opinion. We're going to do just the smallest amount of green. The smallest amount. That was probably too much. All good. Fading into that blue. That light baby blue that we made. Love this light baby blue. Kind of disguising it over the green a little bit. Cobalt. Straight from the tube, because this is so transparent that you kind of need a lot of it, to be honest. I think I'm going out a little too far. It's my hunch. Now remember, we did this custom mixed ultramarine blue here. Coming out kind of far. Pull it in just a little bit. And then, of course, your purple. Your diox. And your carbon black. I'm going to use this new one right here. Now, this paint gets very gummy, so it's been on the canvas for a while now. So really just make sure. I do notice a little hair right here. Unable to get it off. Okay. Okay, step one, I'd say right here, we're going to just spray. Keep this hydrated. without being too hydrated. These are custom mixes, so they're already kind of watery, so don't be too focused on that area. Over here, probably a little bit. And now we go for it. Grab the brush in your preferred position. Ooh, I'm also noticing I don't have much space on the side here. So, make some space. You don't want to be knocking these over. You might. It's all good. All right, rainbow time. Oh man, look at that. I'm not loving that green. Hoping it blends a little bit better. Don't go too back and forth. Keep that magenta through. That orange is very overpowering. It's not the end of the world, but it's very overpowering. Okay, you're already drifting. Disguising that magenta, just be careful. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not liking that green. Okay, not the end of the world. I'd say let's make a few minor adjustments. I want to bring a little bit more white outwards. White outwards and yellow outwards. This green I'm not happy with at all. I think it was the wrong kind. So I'm going to just kind of like disguise it a little bit. It's already blended a little bit on its own, so I'm not too concerned. I want to get more of this quinacridone magenta in there. Beautiful magenta. The orange is very overpowering, so I want to bring up some yellow up here. The issue is you're so low on this color. I mean, I'm almost out right now. Okay? If you're going to do everything, you might as well just add a little bit more color back, or else you're just going to be scraping it unevenly compared to other colors. I want a little bit more purple to come through. Also, don't forget you have that outer black that you got to take care of. It's a quick process. Very quick process. Cobalt. Of course, this color that we custom made. Okay. Might be too white, might not be. Either way, let's get going. Where's my spray bottle? Here it is. Okay. Also do want to quickly probably use this brush here. Make sure that black doesn't stick by itself for too long. Just kind of work it in just a little bit. Does not have to be perfect. Same with this side. Just so it's not sitting on its own for too long. All right, keep this off to the side and get painting. Make sure you don't rotate your brush around. Okay, I'm liking it so far. Getting rid of some of that green that I didn't want. I mean, so bright in the middle, nice and beautiful. Final strokes. Love it. Very beautiful, very bright in the middle. I didn't have to do too many strokes. I disguised some of that green. The black on the side is nice and taken care of. I mean, really good. But I kept some quinacridone. The orange isn't too overpowering. That yellow really disappeared. I wish I had more of that. The green is subtle. The blues are a lot more bright. So overall, I'm happy with this rainbow. I did kind of what I set out to do. And let's let this dry. And let's just clean this brush in the meantime. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes or so. I'd say it's pretty much dry to the touch. Still feels nice and tight, which we love. And overall, I'm happy with it. Everything I tried to do pretty much ended up happening. I'd say for a perfectionism standpoint, you might be able to see that this line curves, which means my final stroke was not perfectly linear. Now, I could go in, add some airbrush to try to fix up the mistakes, and try to make it perfect, but there's something really nice when a canvas is just wet painted as a base instead of adding airbrush, because the airbrush over time, we'll find out once we do the airbrush modules, it gets a little dusty, a little grainy, and so it makes it harder for the masking tape to stick, harder to have good clean effects with the brush and splash effects on the top of it. So overall, if you can stop with a wet base, that is obviously ideal for velocity painting. So here's the finalized gradient. You can see it's got some drips off to the side, which I think is real fun and aesthetic. People love it, I think, because it implies that it's a painting. You know, we're creating such digital looking effects. Anytime that we are reminded that this is made by a human, I think it just adds a level of character and spirit to it. Quick little comparison of the big gradient versus the little one. I love how you can see the progression of trying a rainbow from stock colors, trying to modify it a little bit, and then the end result. You can see also how the black on the outside is not perfect. You can see how it's a little streaky, especially when it's glossy. It just happens to show more of the texture. So that obviously could have been something to try to fix up, but I think the more I was messing with the black, it would have interfered with that potential quinacridone, beautiful magenta color that I was trying to keep. So it's all about trade-offs. Is it perfect? No. Am I happy with it? Yes. And there's another big gradient down. On to the next.